Welcome to the Vibrant Living podcast, where we talk about living fully aligned, spirit, soul, body, and your whole life. I am your host, Donna Tashjian, and today I am joined by Tom. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a creative visionary, a brand strategist, an author, a speaker, and he helps organizations uncover their secret sauce. I like that word. Tell their story with clarity and impact. He has a background spanning fine art, advertising, agency leadership, and speaking, which I mentioned. Tom brings a unique perspective on positioning, resilience, and renewal. He is the author of The Position Player and the Stuff That Sticks, and he is known for asking questions that spark insight and meaningful change. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so pleased to be here with you. Thank you.
Me too. I always enjoy my conversations with you. So tell us about your secret sauce in helping people. Where's that? What's the message behind that?
You know, uh, I think it started with knowing how to network. And it's not about talking about you and blabbing the whole time. It's actually knowing how to ask key important questions and then listening. There's so much more about listening well and listening between the lines than there is about talking.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was a government lobbyist his whole career, so he knew how to shake hands and rub elbows. And as a marketer, I need to learn about the client's business and services, and what's happening in their business, and listen between the lines. So it's a discovery. Long before we create anything, there's a discovery process, and I love that.
Well, one of the words I've heard you use is balance. What does that mean to you?
If you're frazzled and overworked and stressed, everything around you is going to fall apart. There's going to be anger and frustration, and things won't fall into place. And add to that, I work in a career where I have to think creatively
Mhm.
and different and fresh and unexpected. So I know the value of being balanced, um, stepping away from work, finding your zone and your places where you're inspired.
Right,
Um, and that doesn't even necessarily happen at work, but
right.
work can flourish when you've got spiritual balance, you've got life balance, family, the things that matter most to you, working out, your fitness, your health. It all intermixes into what can be called success.
Yes. And as you called it, the secret to happiness is
Yeah,
learning how to do that. It can be quite a juggling match at
yeah.
all. How did this begin to be important to you? Have you always been so balanced in your life and been able to do all of that together?
Of course not. No, when you're young, you're great. No, no, no. But and I always had this direction. I don't look like a creative director. I don't have colored hair and tats and earrings and studs, but I have been an art director and a creative director for 45 years.
Mhm.
But what's made me successful, people think of me as the account guy because I'm the one doing the business also, and I'm asking questions and I'm probing
Mhm.
because that informs where we go creatively.
Mhm.
Then a number of years later, well into my career, this is now about 15 or 16 years ago, um, actually longer than that, I survived the fall of the South World Trade Tower.
Mm.
And I had a client who owned the towers, and they gave us an office to work in, which we weren't in all the time. But the agency that I worked for was sold, and we were celebrating the merger, if you will, or the buyout the night before in the towers. And if it weren't for that, I would have been there.
Mm.
But there I was, not 9 or 10 hours later, my friends and colleagues, a building, an office, and even my job were gone,
Mm.
absolutely gone in a flash. I had my life. I had a broken heart.
Yeah.
I was shocked, but what do I do? I had a mortgage and kids, three young kids, and I started my own business about branding and the bigger picture branding. And things got humming and things were fantastic and going up. And I was paying private school tuitions and I was paying for colleges for my kids. Life was fantastic. And I was working out and I was healthy. And then I had an awful, awful scare in the hospital with tetanus that no one gets anymore. which
Mm,
I got from a tainted inoculation shot at a regular physical.
mm,
And I had seizures. And long story short, long, ugly story short, I bit off my tongue.
mm.
And that was an unbelievable, awful pain and experience.
Yeah.
But it also saved my life, believe it or not, because I was in the hospital, obviously, getting great care, critical ICU care. And after 6 days, that was sort of waned out of my system with all the drugs and care. And they came to me and they said, "We have one other thing we need to talk to you about. We found a critical looking brain aneurysm that needs attention."
Mm,
And I felt like I was punched in the stomach. And I got the goosebumps and the shivers. But ultimately, I had to make a decision on how to deal with that and surgeons and how to get my work in gear and get, um, wills done and all of that. And I had a 10 and a half hour open cranial brain surgery, not, 5 weeks after I was in the hospital for the tetanus.
wow.
Neither of which, who would ever dream that would happen? But they were unrelated. So me being in the hospital with the tetanus scare and awful, awful pain revealed that I had a aneurysm about to blow.
Mm,
So we asked about, life balance. When I came out of that and I went to the Jersey Shore to recuperate, I realized, I saw the sunrise every morning. I had the best tasting cups of coffee I ever had in my life.
yep.
I read 3 books on my iPad. And after 10 days, just 10 days after surgery, I decided, you know what, hon, I got to go back to work. But when I go back to work, I need to fire 2 clients. And
Hmm.
who does that?
Yep.
You're thinking about income, right? But these were 2 clients who were the most negative, bitchy, whiny, woe is me kind of people every day of their life. And I had no more time or energy for people like that.
Right.
So that's what I did. And it was important for me to control my balance,
Yeah.
for me to do some things for myself. So that was the best decision I made for the business. And not 6 or 8 weeks into it, I decided, you know what? Out of the blue, I have a book to write. So
Mm.
I wrote it and I self-designed and I self-published. And then I started public speaking and I joined a rock and roll band with some friends. And I was the drummer for the next 15 years in a 10-piece rock and roll band. That was pure for me. That was purely
Yep.
fun. And then I decided to write a second book and I took very high-end professional speaking training.
Hmm.
And so I have some speaking. I do 8 or 10 talks a year that are all just for me to help people in the audience.
Right.
That is not my career path,
Right.
but they're really to help people. And so I created that work-life balance out of crisis,
Yeah.
where I just decided I've been in a service industry my entire career, but it's important for me to be healthy, to be stimulated and inspired. And
Right.
how do I do that? I have to take control of my balance in my life.
Yep.
That's a long answer to your question. I
I,
apologize.
I wanted the long answer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
longer than that.
Yeah,
When
it
I
is.
got to
It
hear the
is.
whole story, it's longer than that. But it's a lot in there. In a short period of time, your life is radically transformed with all of that. And it's unfortunate sometimes that these hard places cause us to rethink. We all have different kinds, but these hard
Yeah.
places cause us to rethink what's a priority. Because one of the things I hear with my clients so much is they have self-care selfish. And no
Mm,
matter how many times we say it's not selfish, people
mm.
have a hard time with realizing that you can't give what you don't have. It's
Yeah.
like if you're not taking your time away to refurbish and to I now have things that say recharging. It's
Yeah.
on my calendar. I'm recharging because
Yeah.
I'm giving all the time in service base. I'm always creating some new content, new video, new posts, new something to try to encourage people. And so if I don't have the recharging time, then I use the word alignment.
Yeah. I love that.
And
I
it's
love that.
similar to balance. It's that whole theme of aligning your life by your values and what's important.
Yeah. I know very, very central to yourself and to your audience is spirituality and God in your life. And that's been huge in my life. Um, it's a humbling element
Hmm.
in your life to realize that I'm not the brightest, I'm not the most important, I don't have all the answers. And in a crisis, who do you think lets you still be here? How do you think that you survived and you saw yourself through? There really is someone overlooking your path. I believe wholeheartedly in angels and the
Hmm.
people that have been so instrumental in my life. I know I can talk to,
Hmm.
and so that's calming, that's reassuring. We all need that. Everyone has their share of crises.
Absolutely. And what would you like people to walk away with today? And also, how can they get in touch with you if they would like to learn more about having you as a
Mhm.
speaker or your professional services for companies?
To walk away with, it's so easy to get in on the treadmill and be so driven because of the things you want to achieve and the things you want to have in your job or your career. And you can all of a sudden, without trying, realize you're stuck. How do I get out of this?
Yeah.
I'm not happy, or I just don't have that alignment, right? So it is not at all, like you said, being selfish to
Yeah.
take care of yourself, make the space. It does give you that breather. It does give you that inspiration. I'm a huge people person. I get inspired just because I go meet people.
Hmm.
I love that. So make space for that. It makes a big difference in your happiness and in your success. As far as reaching out to me, anyone can reach out to me to my email. My personal email is tom@stimulusbrand.com. That's our company, Stimulus Brand Communications.
Okay.
And they can even call me 609-457-0161. That's my personal cell phone. Um, my business is a brand positioning and marketing company that we help Fortune 500 companies all the way down to startups in all of the media, traditional or digital. And as far as stages, I love to motivational speak. Some of the topics I speak on have nothing to do with marketing or branding or positioning. It's topics like you mentioned, one about resilience.
Hmm.
And I'm so engaged in that it's easy to engage the people I'm speaking with.
Yeah. We'll put all of that contact information in the show
Wonderful.
notes and the YouTube description so everybody can grab that and reach out to you for further information.
Mhm.
To be able to utilize the resources that you have available. You had mentioned earlier, if you are making some kind of big change, this was before we were recording, big change
Mhm.
in your company, like hiring an ad company, it would be great to talk to Tom first so you can find out what the best way to go forward rather than just doing the next shiny object thing. There is just so much of
Yeah,
that.
people come to the table often with some measure of urgency. We need a new website or we need a social
Yeah,
media plan. And I help them take a step back first to understand their culture
right,
and how that influences their chances for success.
right.
And I love to have that discussion, which is why I offer just myself, principal of the agency, as a consultant.
Correct. So I wanted to mention that because that's really important, whether
Mhm.
you're out there. It's better to talk to somebody before I'm spending a bunch of money and find
Yeah,
out it wasn't in the right way to go. So and have to
absolutely.
redo it all over again.
Yeah, you have few chances to do it right.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Tom, for sharing your story, for sharing your light, for being who you are and being authentically you. I always appreciate our conversations and
Donna,
thank you
thank
for
you for
being here.
inviting me. I really appreciate the time.
You are welcome. As we wrap up our conversation today, who do you know that needs to hear today's wisdom that Tom shared? And thinking about balance and alignment in a whole new way. So take a minute and bless them and share this audio episode or video episode with someone that you love. And if you want to learn more about me and explore what vibrant living looks like, you can visit my website at ivibrantliving.com. You will find upcoming events and free things that I am sharing and all the ways to connect with me there. So, thank you again for being here and part of our vibrant living community. Until next time, have a wonderful day.